let's talk about the whatever's going to go down next weekend. UFC 270 going down from Anaheim. And I'll say this, it's tough to call this because we're 7 days out, but there's a couple factors here that I think that people aren't considering at all here. One, COVID is rampant. They haven't had a sanctioned event in California during COVID this whole time. So this will be the first time that happens for the UFC, at least. Bellator did do it, but the UFC hasn't done it. And the UFC, the California State Athletic Commission, is notoriously just more strict on all of this stuff than any other state. So we'll probably see fight pullouts or fight, tentative cancellations because of, unclear tests. Like, I can definitely see that happening. And then another thing is there's a giant volcano that erupted in the middle of the South Pacific, like a huge volcano that's going to interrupt travel. I don't know if everybody has come in for this fight as far as whatever international fighters are on this card. So that plus COVID plus just general, everyday nonsense. I think we can talk about
pulled out already,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is one of those things with what I like to do on this show has been like do the look ahead, but we're in this weird little climate where, like, we already talked about Moreno Figueiredo, we already talked about Francis Ngannou and Ciryl Gane. I mean, like, just the crazy storylines for those fights alone is just nuts. But it's just this whole card, I feel like we have to play it by day. This is going to be, I feel like what we see it coming up right now versus what it's going to be next week is going to be very different. And with that said, do you guys have any spots that you like per se? Liam?
Yeah, so I only have one bet locked in, and to be honest with you, the closer we get to fight time, the less confident I feel in it. But basically, one of the strategies I take to betting is that I try and look at lines and predict which lines are going to move, because that gives me options. If I then change my mind, I can try and arb out at a better price on the other side. So that's something that I try and do. And I felt like there was going to be steam from the public coming in on the side of Brandon Moreno here because there was a draw in the first fight. He wins the second fight pretty decisively. So again, for recency bias and everything else, you'd think the champion would be favored, in the rematch here. But we have seen that, pretty wholesale lifestyle changes from Figueiredo. Looks like he's got a different body coming into this fight. Take that for whatever it's worth. So yeah, I might be interested in middling out if this price hits like plus 165, plus 170 on the Figueiredo side. Then I'm sitting there, halfway to being a bookmaker. That's fine by me. So I'm going to play this one out. I'm going to revisit the tape here. But yeah, I basically just thought I'd get an early price, and I hit minus 162, minus 167 right now is the best market price. So we'll see how that line moves.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this fight card. This is quite an interesting scenario that's breaking down here. Lucky Locks, do you have anything on this looking ahead that you think is interesting?
Yeah, I actually have 3 plays on this card. I have a small stab quarter unit on Ciryl Gane unanimous decision at plus 550. I have a shot on Wellington Turman and Rodolfo Vieira over 1.5 at minus 105. And I also have a half unit play on Wellington Turman in that fight at plus 225.
Yeah, like that's an interesting fight. That's the headliner prelim right now is Rodolfo Vieira and Wellington Turman. And this card, Cody Stamann and Sayad Nurmagomedov. That's another one that'll be interesting. That's up in the air. I don't know if it's up in the air, but I'm just saying that's one of those fights that I could see not being the same fight that it is, a week from now that it is today. And then there's with Ilia Topuria and Charles Jourdain. That's an awesome fight. I mean, just to, to rapid fire handicap that fight, Ilia Topuria and Ciryl Gane, I feel like just based on the top of my head, the featherweight division goes over like a crazy amount, like 70% of the time. I feel like this fight, just with the wrestling of Topuria, and I feel like this fight is kind of, it seems like it's going to go the distance. And if there's a decent price on an over 2.5 or a fight goes the distance, even in that like minus 145 or better range, I think that's a solid look. Liam, what do you think about that?
That could make sense to me. I'd have to revisit the tape on the Jourdain grappling, though. I know he's a black belt, but there's levels to being a black belt as well. I think Topuria is a handful on the ground, especially early. And Jourdain is scrappy, but we've seen him look his best on the feet. I did fade him in a few of his fights. I think he's been a little bit overvalued at times by the market. Then they made me eat my words on Andre Ewell. He looked like he was minus 50,000 in that fight. But I'm interested to see how he does in this fight on short notice. Ilia Topuria, dangerous guy as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, Ciryl Gane is coming off that pretty awesome performance. What was that, like a couple weeks ago? And yeah, with the way that the odds are now, though, Topuria is lined at minus 400 and Jourdain at plus 400, but over 1.5 rounds, minus 150. That seems a little bit like easy money to me, in my opinion. Like if based on that, if the over 1.5 rounds right now is at minus 155, I feel like at some point you might be able to get like fight starts round 2 at like minus 175. And I think that's good value, because everyone's going to think that this is one of those spots where everyone is going to think that Topuria is going to run over Jourdain. Not everybody, but the people that aren't full-time MMA bettors, or the casuals, let's say, they're going to look at this matchup and think that Topuria is going to run over Jourdain, and he might do it quickly. And those are always one of those spots where Jourdain's pretty capable, especially early on. I think that he's going to be able to at least last to the second round. But honestly, beyond that, like, let's just we got to just revisit the main event. I mean, as far as just the storyline in the main event, I want to see Francis Ngannou win. I think that would just put a crazy wrench in this whole saga that's been the heavyweight division. And do I think it's going to happen? No. I feel like they're kind of bargaining this Tyson Fury fight right now for Francis Ngannou to stay with the UFC in case he loses or in case he wins. I have no idea what's going on. But like, if Ngannou wins this fight, it's going to change the landscape of the UFC. If Gane wins this fight, I feel like it's going to keep the landscape in the direction that it's going. As far as handicapping goes, I think Gane's going to win this fight pretty easily. Just kind of like a weird insight that I had. I don't even know what this is, but I saw this like viral video going around of these two, like, I guess they're MMA Twitter personalities, like having a boxing match in a park. Have you guys seen this? Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I haven't seen that. Sounds funny though.
It's two kids who are like, I think one of them kind of knows how to box, and the other one just looks like that if he hit the other kid, he probably hurt him very badly. And it's just like they're taping this event, this 15-minute 3-round fight, and it's mostly just a staring contest with like a couple. It's just a fun sparring, but with nobody really wanted to take chances. And I feel like that's what the first like 2 rounds of this fight is going to be. It's just going to be a dreadful stalemate. Like, remember when Ciryl Gane fought Volkov and Dana White walked out of the fight before the fight was even over? I feel like that's how bad this fight is going to be, as far as just a staring contest. And I think overs in this one. What do you think about that one, Locks?
Yeah, I don't mind. I think the over 1.5 is like -163 or something like that. I think I saw that on Betway. I don't think that's bad. Obviously, I have the small stab on Gane unanimous decision. Yeah, like I could see Gane just staying out of range early and kind of just working him from the outside. Lots of money coming in on Gane right now. I don't know if I'd really feel comfortable on the money line there, but if he does win, I feel like he probably does look like a pretty big favorite. I'm interested to see what the lines are going to look like on the round grouping props, like Ngannou by KO in round 1, 2, and 3, or like Gane to win in 4 or 5 or decision.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm still leaning Gane from a straight prediction standpoint. 25 minutes not to get knocked dead. Easier said than done. We'll see how it shakes out. But yeah, straight up prediction wise, I like Ciryl Gane to win this.
Yeah, I notoriously have a really bad habit of trying to like middle these type of like high level heavyweight fights to say like, okay, Gane's going to either win by decision or Ngannou's going to knock him out. And I get plus money on both sides. And then what ends up happening is like, I tried to do that with Jan versus Adesanya. And I was like, there's no way Jan's winning this fight by decision. That's not happening. And that's what happened. So I'm not going to do that here. Would I be absolutely godsmacked if Francis Ngannou won this fight by decision, especially right now with all of the implications going on? Yes, I would be completely shocked if Francis Ngannou won this fight somehow by a 5-round decision. That would be a reality that I can't say that I can see happening. But I've said that before on this YouTube channel, and I've been wrong. So I'm not going to say it again. So besides that, I feel like this fight card next week is a conundrum. And like besides these 2 fights, like I really hope Royval as a backup. Are they going to have a backup for Francis Ngannou? Like if this will be a very interesting week.
Yeah, Parker Porter, dude. They've got him standing at the UFC headquarters right now, dude. Ready to hit the ground running.
I don't even mean to laugh. I've made money betting on Parker Porter. He's awesome because he's one of those guys that I talked about where like, people think he sucks and that he's going to get knocked out quickly, and then he ends up winning by decision. So yeah. Didn't he fight John Jones?
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did. And I mean, as far as the backup for that fight, there won't be one, I don't think. Or maybe Derek Lewis? They're going to bring Derek Lewis in last minute? Like that would be a kind of a, yeah, I mean, I guess they could.
For a 3-round fight, he'll do it.
For non-title fight.
No. 3-round title fight. He specified. He wants it, just little modified rules. That's all. I think heavyweight title fights should be 3 rounds. Fuck it. Let's get the best out of these guys.
Or no, 5 3-minute rounds.
That works too. Rock and roll. Give them a little bit of rest so we get them
with the extra time. The extra time is there. It's just they're not fighting. Like the 2 minutes that I'm taking away is there. They're just not fighting. That would be. See, we need to do more of that. Like that 1X that's happening. I'm going on a complete tangent here, but like that 1X that's happening. Like Mighty Mouse is fighting that mixed cage fighting rules with.
Oh yeah, against Rod Tang.
Yeah, against Rod Tang. That's going to be so dope.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. So that's the state of the UFC right now. Like beyond that, we got a whole bunch of prospective fights that we don't know. Do you guys have any last words before we wrap it up here as far as the look ahead on UFC 270?
Yeah, dude, I will just add on the Ngannou and Gane fight. One of the analysts I really respect, my man Sean Orr, told me, Gane is going to win this fight, Liam. Don't bet Francis. Like, you just be wasting your money. And so I'm going to take that opinion seriously and do the tape study again and look back into it. But in a fight at heavyweight where there's a lot of chance for a knockout, we saw it with a fight that everybody assumed was going to go to decision tonight. It ends like instantly. Both guys get completely rocked backwards, early. I think Gane has good distance management. I think that, broadly speaking, he does a really good job managing the range. He uses the teep kick. That was Sean's, the crux of his argument. He's like, it's longer than a jab. He can keep you far away. And I think all of that makes sense. But we saw Francis Ngannou fight with complete, zero technique and knock Jairzinho Rozenstruik through a portal. That was no technique. That was just these. Then he fights Stipe, right? And when he fought Stipe the first fight, we see that Stipe is getting hit with punches from Ngannou with his mouth open like this. And he's still getting Pez dispenser backwards, stumbling across the cage and shooting desperation takedowns. And I say that as a huge fan of Stipe. I bet on Stipe the first fight and Ngannou the second fight because I had a feeling that it wasn't going to come to pass twice. And I thought, I think that there's a lot of confidence on the Ciryl Gane side here. And against somebody as dangerous a puncher as Francis Ngannou, that's really troubling to me. I look on the Bet MMA page. Every bet is on Ciryl Gane. There's 3 people on Francis Ngannou. That's a red flag for me. And I don't give a fuck about what's going on outside of the cage, largely speaking, when I try and handicap the fights, because so many things are said that don't come to pass. Roy Val said, I'm going to fight more reserved. 3 minutes into the fight, he's like, oh, F all that. I'm going forward. It's that's just how fighting is. It's chaotic. People revert back to what's natural. And I think, Ciryl might have this confidence about him because Francis doesn't try and take your head off in the sparring room. But I do think when Francis is swinging that hammer, he can knock anybody's head off. It doesn't matter who you are or if you're better or anything else. So I think he showed in the second Stipe fight his wrestling has improved. So whether or not he could do that for 5 rounds, it's if he can keep this upright for 15 minutes, I think he's dangerous at least for that amount of time. And, all it takes is one mistake at heavyweight for you to be snoring, even if you're really good at fighting. And Ciryl Gane, what is this, 9, 10 fights as a pro? 11 fights as a pro, and he's going to take on Francis Ngannou for all the marbles. The UFC is backing him as their pony, and he's the favorite. That's a lot of fucking pressure. And you're representing your coach who's fighting his former guy, who everything's on the line. It's nobody's ever folded under that pressure before.
Yeah, but you didn't even explain half of the implications when you just said, this is what for me as a bettor, the gain that I would have of betting Francis Ngannou personally and financially does not equal to the gain that I would get non-monetary to see him win in this matchup and just give the FU to the UFC and Dana White. And who knows what happens at that point, because, Francis Ngannou has already said he's not re-signing for the money that he's going to make currently. So would I like to see that? Yeah, I would like to see that a lot. Would I like to win money betting on the other side? Yeah, sure. So I just have to weigh. I'm not going to bet on Ngannou. I'm either going to bet on Gane or nothing here. And there's just too much non-monetary gain as far as just someone who, outside of just, covering it from a betting perspective, just covering it from a storyline perspective, just the wrench and just the tangent timeline that this is going to put the UFC on if Francis Ngannou wins this fight versus if he loses. It's just crazy. And it's just crazy that this fight is happening in Anaheim. Oh, there's just so much. This is a disaster waiting to happen. Just an absolute train wreck. This card is an absolute train wreck waiting to happen. So I guess with that, we can say, I'm going to be here. I'm going to be here this time next Saturday. So I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be, who even knows if it'll be Gane and Ngannou fight that fight.
Who knows is right. But all I'll say is this, Almac. I could see, what's to say that, Gane gets hurt 2 or 3 times in this fight and it costs him rounds. He could win 4 minutes of a round against Ngannou, get clipped with a punch, and then he loses the round. That's the other thing I would say is like, I don't think it's the most likely outcome, and Ngannou by decision is like probably not, a 50% outcome. Obviously it's like, but where is it? I don't think it's a 0% outcome either. Like I could definitely see a number of paths to Gane, losing these early rounds to Francis based on the power differential.
Ngannou by decision right now is 13-1, and to me, that wouldn't be enough value. I would honestly want like 20 to bet that, just because of how unlikely I think that is to happen. But you have just made a great case for it to happen, and yeah, I rarely am like, I'm not touching this one from multiple sides, because I love to like get in on both sides of a number on fights. This whole card seems like, and just to close before like the co-main event, is going to, the trilogy of this flyweight fight is absolutely awesome. Deiveson Figueiredo is, just an absolute destroyer, and taking on the assassin baby. This is going to be an awesome fight. But the thing about this fight is we can't really break this down until we see both these guys healthy on the scales, because we've seen Figueiredo multiple times miss weight or have health problems, not look good. Last time he had to take like the extra 30 minutes and just look completely sucked out coming in for the rematch that he lost. And then we know everything that happened with the first fight, the draw, and where he had like rehydration poisoning and the fight was almost not going to happen. So I feel like there is a case to be made for Deiveson Figueiredo at plus money, but you just it's not. You gotta look. You have to play it by the day, and you just gotta keep looking and measuring the expectations, because I just see. I know that he's looked awesome. He's looked like completely different, but how? Like, I don't know. There's just so many. There's so many unknowns. That's a tough fight to break down. Like I've gone complete full circle, where I was just like, yeah, no, it's Moreno all day. But now I'm really starting to think that there might be some value in Figueiredo, but you're kind of betting into a lot of uncertainty. So it's you got to just like manage expectations and bankroll management. I don't know. I'm completely talking myself out of this fight. Locks, do you have any thoughts on the Moreno Figueiredo fight?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like Figueiredo opens minus 275 the first time and closes north of minus 320. And I thought he won that fight. Next fight, he opens up at minus 240, closes around there. The line tightened up a little bit, but not much. And now he's plus 150 in this one after, let's be real. It was a bad performance last time, but I still think it's maybe a little bit of an overreaction. I mean, I'm kind of with you there. I think there is a little bit of value on Deiveson Figueiredo, but you hit the nail on the head with the uncertainty. It's just like, I mean, last time we talked about this, I was saying I think that on his best day, Figueiredo beats anybody at 125, but how many more of those best days are there going to be at this weight class? So it's all going to come down to how healthy he is and how good the weight cut is, and that's really the big uncertainty there. And then that's the big unknown when you're trying to break this one down. But yeah, at plus 150, I'm starting to think pretty hard about Deiveson Figueiredo here.
Yeah, Liam, I know that you touched on it. What do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, I think broadly speaking, getting this kind of plus money figure on the former champion is not a terrible look. He's been competitive with this guy. We know that he could hurt him at his best. But, the question is, I think Locke's hitting the nail on the head when he's talking about the timing of this fight. It's like timing is everything. And Deiveson was at the peak of his powers the first time when they fought to the draw. Then he was a little bit diminished. He gets completely outclassed. Now he's changed his whole life to try and close the gap here again. And that's possible. But, I don't want to think that Brandon Moreno, what has he just been drinking soda pop and like hanging out on the couch? Like, no, he's probably been training too. So I think he's probably getting better as well. I think it would take, a pretty monumental effort here and everything going right physically. So I think weigh-ins is going to be critical here. Weigh-ins could probably shift the line tremendously, and I honestly, this is the other thing, Al Mack was talking about, circumstances that causes fights not to happen, and knock on wood here. But I think that, it's possible that we see, Figueiredo miss weight. I think he's very close to it right now, but all it takes is like one little problem in the water load, the whatever, and you could fuck something like that up, especially with somebody whose weight is so sensitive. That's just something I'm concerned about. Yeah, with so many medical incidents related to the weight cuts. But I mean, he's approached this professionally, and probably with medical intervention,
Yeah, but he has also botched it a couple of times, like with his own professional advice, like, people who claim to be professionals advising him have also botched this operation. One thing that I will say that I feel that we're kind of not, just to be the devil's advocate, we're kind of just not mentioning that, Moreno has reached like the precipice of his, he fought so hard to get to this climax. Now he is champion. It reminds me of like Andy Ruiz Jr., where it's like, he beat Anthony Joshua, became the heavyweight champion, the first Mexican heavyweight champion, and then he goes in there in the rematch and just absolutely lays an egg. And I'm not saying that Moreno is going to do that. It's just one of those things where it's like everyone's focusing on the storyline with Figueiredo, but there needs to be some, credence to the storyline of like Moreno has reached the apex of his goal and now he needs to defend it. It's not always as easy to do that, especially when you're coming off the fruits of your labor, like it's and now you're talking about a guy in Figueiredo who might be more motivated. I hate talking about motivation in MMA fights so much, but it's this is one of those fights where it's so much outside of the, just the realm of skill. It's these non-tangible factors, and that's what this fight basically breaks down to. And honestly, these two fights are the only two fights that I can really say that I'm going to spend a whole lot of time breaking down, because the other ones, I just don't know what's going to happen. This card is going to be pretty fluid. So, yeah,